up, y'all? It's your girl Amanda, and we are back with another episode of Mandy's Entertainment Reviews. So, for this episode, we are reviewing the documentary on Tina Turner, simply titled Tina. So, Tina was released with HBO or HBO Max, that's where I watched it, and it was released back in 2021. So, it was released 2 years before she passed away. It was just one part. And honestly, I give it a 5 out of 5. And why do I give it a 5 out of 5? Because it was well produced. Now, I watched a lot of documentaries that were covering singers that have passed on. So they didn't really live to, tell their own life story and stuff. And that's what Tina got to do. Like, she was in the documentary, she was dressed beautifully, she had on a black suit, and I didn't see her shoes, but she probably had on some like brick heels or something. And she told her story. She told the good, the bad, the ugly, and also her happily ever after. Now, if you have been listening to my reviews, you do know that I cover my reviews in style of KWL: know, want to know, and learned. So, what do I know? That she is from the South. She's American born, but like maybe 5 or 10 years before she passed away, she actually renounced her American citizenship. I always wondered why she did that. People always say like, oh, she was always made a joke and her abuse was always made a joke and all that stuff. But I always wonder, like, if somebody like close to her knows like the real reason, or if that's the real reason with another reason. But she is American born, but she died a Swiss citizen. But she was born in Nutbush, Tennessee. She had awesome legs. Now, mind y'all, Tina Turner was like 80 something when she died, but when she like got in her prime, like in her 40s or 50s, she was just in shape. She had killer legs. She wore heels, and then there's like footage of her walking across like this pole, and she didn't have like no support or nothing, and she just looked fantastic, and she was just getting it with no support, dancing and just having a good time. Um, my two favorite Tina Turner songs, well, three, Proud Mary, What's Love Got to Do with It, and I also put, I forgot to put Goldeneye. Goldeneye came out in like 95 for the James Bond movie. I discovered it like on Pandora or something, but it goes like quadruple platinum in my car. That's one of my favorites. Um, she married Ike in the 60s or 50s or 60s, I believe. She had kids and also adopted Ike's children, so altogether she was raising four boys. She's known as the Queen of Rock and Roll. Her real name is not Tina Turner, if you guys didn't know that. Her real name is Anna Mae Bullock, and let's see, I can't read my own handwriting. Let's see, she practiced Buddhism, so if you guys remember in What's Love Got to Do with This, she taught, I think her name is Vanessa Bell Calloway. She taught Vanessa Bell Calloway's character how to chant "No, yeah, I don't want to mess it up, so let me not say that in real life. Um, she had a Broadway show. It was on Broadway for a couple years before she passed away. She was in a movie called Mad Max in 1985. She's she was friends with Oprah because I remember Oprah. There was a story. Oprah was in Switzerland where Tina lived, and she was trying to buy like a Hermes bag or something, and the salesperson didn't let her like buy the bag for racist reasons. So, and she was friends with Cher as well, and Cher did speak about her before she passed away. Also, do you guys remember the TV show Sweetie Pies with Miss Robbie? She was one of her background singers back in the 60s, but Miss Robbie said she had like a health issue or something and she couldn't sing background anymore. So, but she was one of the backgrounds in the 60s. She had a house in View Park slash Windsor Hills, and if you're not from LA, View Park, Windsor Hills is like a historically black area of Los Angeles. Windsor Hills, View Park, and Baldwin Hills are known as like the black Beverly Hills. So she divorced Ike in the late 70s, and her resurgence in the 1980s, and again, Goldeneye, recorded in 1995. During the 80s, she did move to Europe, where she met Erwin, her second husband, and she passed away in 2023. So, what do I want to know? I want to know about her Nutbush upbringing. I've never heard of Nutbush outside of Tina Turner, so what was that like? Was it in poverty? Was it like a city in the South? Like, what was that like? Her early singing days. How did she really meet Ike? Did she meet Ike at a party or something? What was it like during the 60s touring? And the reason why I put that is because I was watching a Motown documentary, right? I think it was Motown. And someone was telling a story about how they used to travel in the South in the 60s. Now, mind y'all, most Motown acts are from Detroit, the Midwest, right? I had to take a sip of water. And Detroit it still is technically hit predominantly, or, mostly black, right? But, you're driving in a car, you're in the South, you don't really know where you're going. Were they ever like encountered with like a racial situation, like segregation or anything like that? How was she as a mother? Like I said, she had sons. Like, how was she as a mother? What was her fitness regimen for her legs? That's what I want to know, so I could get legs like Tina Turner's. Did she really escape Ike in the hotel in Texas, like in the movie? What's Love Got to Do with It? And why did she decide to, live out her final, or not her final, because she was still alive? Like, why did she decide to move to Switzerland? How did she meet Erwin? And lastly, how will Tina's legacy be carried out? So here's my disclaimer, y'all. My learn may or may not answer my questions, and that's perfectly fine, but it's still that I learn. So she told her story to People magazine in 1981. I always thought it was like the late 80s, early 90s, so right around the time What's Love Got to Do with It, like that's when she told her story to make the movie. But it turns out she actually told the story way before, in 1981. She was very stylish in the 60s. So the reason why I put that is because Tina used to wear like really short dresses and all that stuff, right? I always thought, because, pictures I see in documentaries I watched, everybody was dressed so conservatively in the 60s. But Tina had on short dresses and all that stuff, and I thought that style didn't come to like the 70s. But it was going on in the 60s, and Tina Turner was doing it. She had the short dresses, the wigs, the makeup, all that stuff. She never studied dancing, so she was a natural great dancer. And she met Ike in St. Louis at a concert with her sister and asked if she could sing. So I could stop assuming that like they met at a party or something. It was a concert in St. Louis. And he told her, "I'll call you to sing one night." And she waited on him. The typical love story. She was 17, and they looked at each other as siblings, and then they fell in love. They basically crossed that boundary. That's never like a boundary. They say, "Oh, date your friends and blah, blah, blah. That's the best relationship ever." Well, that works for some people, in my opinion. So she grew up singing in a Baptist church. I know she, practiced Buddhism. I didn't know she like had affiliations with the Baptist church. Kurt Lauder co-wrote I, Tina. I've never read I, Tina. I didn't read I, Tina yet, but I was shocked to find out that Kurt Lauder was an author, I should say. So if you guys are not old enough to know, Kurt Lauder used to work for MTV News, right? And I think it was Kurt Lauder that delivered the bad news of Tupac and Biggie's death. So I always looked at him as like the guy on MTV delivering the bad news. I didn't know he was an author, so now I know. She didn't understand the show business. I don't know. I don't remember if like her education level was revealed in iTina. If you guys are like Tina Turner fans, please tell me her highest level of education. Maybe she didn't understand because she wasn't very, educated enough. I don't want to like say that. Yeah, she wasn't. I just think that, but I don't know if you guys know like if she completed high school or anything. Please let me know because it wasn't really mentioned in the documentary. Um, the original name was Ike and Tina Review. That sounded way too long, so thankfully they dropped the review. And then, like, back in the day when entertainers would perform on America Bandstand and Soul Train and stuff, you know how they have like the LED names and lights and stuff? They wouldn't have enough light and letters for Ike and Tina Turner Review, so thankfully they dropped the review. Ike beat Tina while pregnant with a shoe stretcher. Now, I knew Ike used to put hands on Tina, but I never knew with a shoe stretcher. And I have a couple in my closet right now. They're wood. Oh my God. And I dropped one on my foot and it hurt so bad. So I couldn't imagine like being hit with one. Like, oh my God, it was so painful. She stayed because of fear and guilt. She was telling a story about how Ike was telling her that, everybody leaves, everybody gets a hit out of me and leaves. So that was the connection of staying for fear and guilt. And she worried about him a lot. So, yeah. She didn't have a glam or stylist team. She did everything herself. So she must have like a knack for style and clothes and stuff because she always looked amazing. Again, y'all, the short dresses, the wigs, the shoes. Like, she didn't look up there stiff. Like, somebody who dressed real bad will probably be up there with like a funeral suit or something and ugly kitten heels. But nope, not Tina Turner. Like, she looked amazing. Right. Uh, and when she would perform, she didn't know what song was coming up. So, of course, yeah, okay, that's what we have, uh, you know, sound check and all that stuff and blah, blah, blah. There was no sound check. There was none of that. They didn't know what the heck was going on. So basically, they was out there just winging it. Very professional, honestly. Tina worked with Phil Spector, and he didn't want Ike in the studio for River Deep Mountain High. I just put that song on my Apple Music, and it sounds amazing in my car. I love that song. So if you guys don't know who Phil Spector is, he was like a big major record producer back in the 60s and maybe the 70s. But my generation may know him as the guy who killed Lana Turner, I think her, no, not Lana Turner. Some blonde actress named Lana visited him at his house. He had a house somewhere in the valley of Los Angeles. And the house looked like a freaking castle. And basically, she got shot, I believe, in the mouth. And he always argued that, oh, she shot herself. She quote unquote kissed the gun, whatever. And he went to prison. This was like in 2003. I was like 8. And he went to prison. He got found guilty. He was sentenced to life, but he ended up dying in prison. Like, I saw like the last photos of him. He looked real crazy with his hair sticking up and all that stuff. But yeah, he didn't want Ike in the studio because Ike was very controlling of how Tina sang the song. And basically, Phil Spector gave her full control of how to sing the song. And it turned out great. So, and after that, she moved to LA in 1962. So, 1960s. I think it was still some sort of racism out there, but she lived in a black area, so I guess she was fine. So the children. So like I said, she has 4 sons. So, but they're not all biologically hers. I wrote the breakdown. So Ike Jr. and Michael was born to Ike's ex Lorraine, right? So in the movie, if you guys remember, Lorraine dropped Ike off to the boys off to Ike, and she said she couldn't do it, and you take him, and blah blah blah. So yeah, and Tina adopted them. So Ike Jr. and Michael, and then I didn't know this. Tina had a son named Craig. by Raymond Hill, one of her band members. And then together, Ike and Tina had Ronnie. And he's the youngest, I believe. He's born in 1960. Craig was born in 58, Michael was born in 59, and Ike Jr. was born in 58. How was she as a mother? She did normal mom stuff. She was at home with them, cooked, and was very strict. So, of course, you got to be strict to have a great household structure. But she was such a mom and running her household. She didn't have any friends and no life outside of the studio or the house. And also give that to Ike as well because he was very controlling. And she grew up watching violence in her home because that's how, like, I guess the cycle unintentionally continued because she watched violence in her home. Nutbush. I found out Nutbush is actually 50 miles outside of Memphis. So, in terms of Chicagoland area, that would be from Beecher, Illinois to, no, I wouldn't say Beecher either. I would say like Kankakee to maybe the southwest side of Chicago, probably the same length of that. So it's right out. It's technically outside of Memphis. I've never been to Memphis, but I have family there, so they would probably explain it to me a little more. But yeah, it's not too far from Memphis, which is like the major city, one of the major cities of Tennessee. Her parents were toxic, arguing, and they both left her with a cousin, so she probably has some abandonment issues as well, probably, um, because her parents left her, of course. Proud Mary came out in 1971. Now, the reason why, and yes, Proud Mary is one of my favorite Tina Turner songs, but the reason why I put that is because I always thought Proud Mary came out in like 1969 or something because it just had that mono record, like warm feeling to it. But nope, it came out in 1971. And she was really crazy in the studio. No, I'm sorry, not her. Ike was really crazy in the studio. And the reason why I put that is because Lawrence Fishburne really bodied, like when he would act in the studio, sometimes he'll stop the music and be like, telling Tina, she messed up and all that stuff. So he was just like in the movies, really crazy. So she, I guess, trained Lawrence Fishburne to really embody him. Tina's son also witnessed some abuse, and he hated his father. I don't remember which son though, but they're all Ike and Tina's children. Let's get that straight. She raised all those boys, but her son witnessed the abuse. And she also attempted to unalive herself with sleeping pills, but Ike brought her back, which is like the scariest thing ever. Um, Ike says she tried to unalive herself 2 or 3 times for attention. No, it's not for attention. It's really because she is in actual like pain. Like she was suffering, not for attention. She was suffering. And to answer one of my questions, she really did abandon Ike in the hotel room in Dallas. And what they didn't really show in the movie was she was almost hit by cars. But in the documentary, Tina says she was almost hit by Mack trucks. So I guess for the movies, they kind of toned it down, but that's what really happened to her. And then she went into hiding after Dallas. So in the movie, they cut from that scene to in the courtroom where, Ike said, I got some clothes, I got some jewelry, I got some blah, 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 blah. But no, in real life, she went into hiding. Ike got everything material in the divorce, but Tina got her name, which is a great financial decision because, people be like, well, why didn't she get the houses, the cars, and clothes and stuff, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, that stuff could be replaced. And she took her name, and obviously we see what happened with her in the 80s, how she resurged. She could buy a new house, clothes, cars, and all that stuff with her name and the business that it brought. In the late 70s, she started working in Vegas and doing TV and all that stuff. So obviously she's Tina Turner now, but she doesn't have a lot of money, so she got to go back to work. But she was always asked about Ike post divorce, and I understand if she was annoyed by it because, she probably left Ike by now like 4 or 5 years ago, She don't want to talk about the most toxic man in the world. You know what I mean? Like she want to move forward, talk about fresh stuff, new stuff. She did a cabaret-esque style for a San Francisco residency. And if y'all don't know, cabaret is like kind of take off your clothes, but it's in a classy way. It's not like a Magic City way, but it's still a classy way. And I can't really picture Tina Turner doing it, but she did it because she loves what she do and she had to pay the bills. Um, she hired a new manager and changed her style to distance her Ike and Tina style, which worked best for her because now, like even in 2026, no, Tina passed away in 2023, right? Tell me why I still see people beat Tina Turner for Halloween and stuff. It's the legacy. It's the legacy. And she also wanted to change imagery of background dancers from Ikettes, which I get because if you dance to a song like Proud Mary and all that stuff, well, not Proud Mary, Golden Eye or What's Love Got to Do It, or Simply the Best. You can't have dancers just standing in one space. No, you gotta have, Get Down, Alvin Ailey, James Brown, all that stuff. She was scared to tell story because of worry of Ike's reaction, because Ike was also like a public figure as well, so he could have used his platform or what limited platform he had to say, hey, that's not what happened. This happened. He would probably like twist the story. I would totally understand, but no, that didn't happen. She told her story. Um, let's see what else. Tina says she felt like home in London, so that's when she officially left the States. What's Love Got to Do with It had the worst demo. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of hits had the worst demo. And I can name one. Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson's In the Closet is a terrible demo because, and it's just a demo, please don't come in. I love Michael Jackson down. But Michael Jackson's In the Closet demo annoys me because he mostly is mumbling through it. Like he's mumbling. I know he hasn't inserted those lyrics yet, but I don't like hearing mumbling in music. So yeah, it happens. What's Love Got to Do with It was covered by a British band, and it was awful. I hated it, and my ears wanted to bleed. And when she recorded it, it reached number one on Billboard in 1984. And she ended up doing 150 concerts for the Private Dancer Tour at 50 years old. 50, and now Tina, 50 years old, a woman, she was probably going through menopause. I don't know, but that's a lot on an older woman's body. But she did it with style and beauty and grace and all that stuff. So that's amazing. Um, she was asked about Ike going to jail in the Mad Max promo interview, and she seemed, in my heart, she seemed kind of annoying, but she gave a really classy response, like, I just want to focus on the positive and move forward and all that stuff. See, she a better woman than me, because see, if she asked about my ex going to jail, I would have said F him. I don't care. Good for him. Like, F him. But, Tina Turner, classy woman, answered it with class. Let's see. And then towards the end, they kind of gave a glimpse of like the relationship she had with her mother. Tina herself said her mother was never satisfied, especially with her accomplishments, which can be very heartbreaking because you work so hard to get somewhere in life, and a lot of people have mothers and fathers that are excited and proud of them, and then there's her mother like, meh, okay, so that it really hurts. She met Irwin at an airport. I thought she met him at like some recording studio in Europe somewhere, but nope, it was at an airport, and she was very straightforward with him. Quote: "When you come to LA, I want you to make love to me." Like she was out there, like she ain't lie. She was she was real about it. She was real what she wanted, so there was nothing wrong with that. 27 years after that, they got married and they had a beautiful wedding. They did show like a little bit of like their wedding footage. Tina had on like a beautiful dress and they had like a big cake and all that stuff. All our friends and family was there. And they, settled in their home in Switzerland. which was beautiful. They showed like the, I guess, lake or whatever they had in their back door, and they showed like the inside of it a little bit. Just beautiful. And lastly, Ike died at 76. I remember when he died. I just didn't know how old he was. Back in the day when he died, I had net zero internet, and net zero is not very visually friendly. So they would put like their entertainment news in the corner, and I remember seeing Ike Turner dead, but I didn't see how old, what killed him, all that stuff. So again, I give this documentary a 5 out of 5. What I liked about the documentary is that she got to be a part of the documentary. She got to tell her story. She got to give what she went through with her family and all that stuff, her parents, not like a cousin or something, or her brother or sister, whoever. No, she told her story. Also participating was the background singers and the bandmates, but I'm kind of bummed. I don't remember seeing Miss Robbie on there. Like she that would have been great if she was on there. I did see footage of the 60s and 50s and 60s of her on TV, which I'm kind of a nerd about seeing stuff like that. And also their personal home movies, Ike and Tina's home movies. Also, all her sons, there was photos of them together. Like, if a couple has like a lot of kids between them, sometimes you don't see their kids together, and I like seeing them together. And also their practice footage, rehearsal and stuff. And what did I dislike? Details of Ike's abuse, and also there was photos of it. Plenty sad moments in her career. Ike went on TV and probably in the 80s lying about what he did and just twisting the truth. And also her parents abandoning her and hearing how her trauma like kind of affected her. So yeah, that was the review of the Tina documentary. If you guys want to check that out, it is still on HBO Max, so you can stream it. And that's the end of my review. Thanks for listening. Peace.